Welcome back to another fresh edition of Ballers NBA Talk, episode 8. We have a unique panel today. To my direct left, our fantasy expert, Monk.
How you doing?
And to Monk's left, CK, Connor Kenny.
Hey, what's up, hello?
And I'm Jay. We're going to break down the latest topics today. First of all, the breaking news today that, kind of some controversial stuff. Greg Popovich gets the nod from the NBA office that he will be indeed coaching the Western All-Stars. The San Antonio Spurs do not have the best record in the West, but because of the Luke Walton situation, even though Luke Walton won all those games, it's still Steve Kerr's wins, technically, so Luke Walton is 0-0, and Steve Kerr wasn't actually there for the coaching, so he doesn't get the technical all-star wins either, so they're going to give it to Popovich. Connor, do you like this decision by the NBA?
I mean, for me, I feel like Luke Walton should get a little bit of credit, and they were trying to figure out a way to get Luke Walton credit for what he did with the Spurs. I mean, giving them the best record. First of all, the best start of any NBA team. But second, one of the best records of all time. And I think that, giving him the position of coaching the All-Star game would be a great way to be like, you know what, since we can't give you Coach of the Year even if you win all the rest of the year, because Steve Kerr's going to get Coach of the Year if they win. Obviously, he's going to get Coach of the Year. So, you gotta give him compensation somewhere. Why not have him coach the All-Star game? That was why I was surprised that it was Popovich. I don't mind Popovich because Popovich is one of the best coaches of all time, but at the same time, you're trying to give Luke Walton a little bit of compensation for what he did, and you're not even going to be able to do that by taking him out of the picture like that.
Monk, do you agree with the NBA's decision to make Popovich the West All-Stars head coach?
Definitely I do, because, Steve Kerr and Luke Walton, they've got a championship last year, but they haven't proved themselves in the past. Greg Popovich has been doing this for God knows how long and has continuously proved himself again and again. So clearly, I think he's a better coach in the situation.
I don't think it's about, for me, it wasn't about the coaching, who's the better coach. Because obviously Popovich is one of the, if not the best coach in the NBA right now. And you know that with his system, that's why the Spurs are so good. And you don't really know if it's if the Warriors are that good. And they don't really need a coach, because remember, that was the whole thing with Steve Kerr last year, were the Warriors this good all along? They were getting there. Is it really Steve Kerr, or is it just the Warriors team? So I get that part of it, but you're trying to give compensation to Luke Walton, and you got to give it to him somewhere, and I thought that was going to be where they were going to give it to him, so I was a little bit surprised.
All right, that brings up a question now, because there's also some controversy in the East for the All-Star head coaching position. The Cavaliers are going to run away with the top, seeded team, so their coach is going to get it. Will David Blatt be the head coach for the team since he won all those games, or they give it to Tyronn Lue because Tyronn Lue was in it? Tyronn Lue did come out and say that David Blatt should be the one coaching the All-Star game. Monk, what do you think should happen here, Tyronn or David Blatt?
Well, first of all, I think it should be Brad Stevens, but that's not in the topic here. Secondly, out of those two, I think you just have to go with Blatt. Tyronn Lue's had how many games as head coach? He really hasn't. Yeah, he hasn't proved himself yet. So, using the same thing as I said for the West with Popovich, you kind of have to go with the guy that's proved himself and got the Cavs to a finals matchup with the Warriors last year. So, I think I'm gonna have to go with Blatt in this situation.
I'm gonna need to agree with Monk if you have to go with those two, but in my I think for me, with how the things are going on, you have an issue with who you're going to pick, blah, 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 blah. Why not just give it to the second seed like they did with the West?
Right.
Give it to the Raptors. The Raptors are on a 9-win streak.
Dwayne Casey's
Why not just give it to Dwayne Casey? You know what I'm saying? Give it to him. They're on a 9-game streak. It's in Toronto this year.
That would be huge for the fans.
That'd be nice. We don't even know. DeRozan will probably get in, but we don't know if he's actually going to get in with how stacked the All-Stars are, especially in the backcourt. So I think that, giving them that a little bit more edge would actually be a little bit more appropriate.
What about Another person would be, what about Eric Spoelstra? Do you guys think he could ever be a nod? I mean, who expected Miami to be as good as they are this year? I mean,
me and Connor picked them to win the whole
Thing,
the
yeah.
East last year in their preseason prediction show. So I mean, they're the 8th seed in the East. I can't see Eric Spoelstra there, but I think it should be given to the 2nd seed, whether it is the Raptors, Bulls, or possibly Hawks or Celtics as well.
Yeah.
Bringing up another topic, the Clippers have been in a lot of news lately, and Blake Griffin, we all know about him. He had that injury earlier in the season. Now he punches a team, like a team not an executive, but
A staff member.
a staff
He's
member,
an equipment manager.
equipment manager, and
A friend of his, too. That was the other thing.
and he punches him, and he breaks a bone, and he's out for, it says now, probably 4 to 6 more weeks. What do you think about Blake?
How does he dunk that hard on a rim and not do anything to his hand, and then punch somebody and break
I mean,
his
that's
hand?
just
Like,
that's just like.
I want to see the other guy. I just want to see where the other guy's at.
I mean,
because he must
Blake
be
Griffin's
screwed.
huge, but like, that's where I was like, I wonder how the other guy is. But I'm like,
Yeah.
obviously Blake doesn't know how to punch
Yeah.
someone if he broke his hand. So that proved that, first of all. So a lot of people are going to call him soft for a long time. There's going to be I think there's going to be a lot of controversy with the Matt Barnes situation that happened at the beginning of the year with Matt Barnes and Derek Fisher, or during the offseason. And how they got in that little scruffle, and how, Matt Barnes was suspended for how many games? 2? 3?
2, I believe.
2. So, what's going to happen with Blake? Is he going to be suspended after the hand injury? Is it just going to, no one really knows what's going to happen depending on the investigation. But that's going to come up with a lot more of a problem with the whole, are stars getting better treatment? Are they getting harder punishment? So that's going to be a thing. The Clippers really don't need that kind of negative energy going on. I feel like they always have negative energy around them, just like in general. The DeAndre Jordan thing during the offseason, who's the thing where the racist guy,
Donald Sterling
with the whole comments about black NBA players. I mean, the Clippers need a little bit of hope.
Yeah.
And glimpse of support. The Clippers are doing really well in the West right now, and better than everyone thought without Blake Griffin. Because Blake Griffin was in the running for MVP at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's kind of surprising that he would go and do something like that, especially since he's one of the leaders of that team, supposed to set the example, sort of thing. So
True.
So, a follow-up question to that. Do you guys think that's something the NBA needs to handle, or is that just Clippers business?
I think that's Clippers business.
it should be, but NBA always gets involved.
The NBA likes to get involved, but I think this is definitely Clippers business. Had Blake Griffin punched him and not broke his hand, this would not be a big deal at all. So I don't think there's going to be a suspension, and I don't think there's going to be, any NBA business involved here.
Yeah, I think if Blake had gotten arrested for assault charges or something.
Well, the thing is, though, was it an out of anger punch, or was Blake frustrated, or
they're just joking around.
Well,
You don't really know.
you
really
can
know.
only take it out of context, because the way I thought of it, I thought he was jokingly punching a friend of his. But if it was out of anger, or there was an altercation of some sort, then maybe the NBA needs to look into it. But it sounded to me like it was just a friendly punch,
Yeah.
and then it just happened to break his hand. Those freak accidents. But the Clippers have been in news lately. They've been playing great. They think they've won 10 out of their last 12. But there has been some speculation about the Cavaliers. Maybe, this is a 99% chance won't happen, but Chris Paul and Kyrie Irving have been talked about in a potential trade. Monk, do you think there's any chance of Paul and Kyrie being traded for each other this season?
Right now in this season, I don't see it happening. I think the way the Clippers have been playing, I'm not sure why they'd want to mix that up. Chris Paul is kind of I feel like the dad of that team. DeAndre is physically the dad, but I feel like Chris Paul really kind of takes care of them all and holds them all together. That's usually what a point guard does, but I definitely think losing Chris Paul would break up the chemistry in that team, so I don't think it happens, and I think Kyrie is completely content in Cleveland. I don't think he has an issue. I wouldn't want to leave LeBron.
It's LeBron James.
Yeah, it's LeBron. I'm not sure anybody wanted to leave him.
Again, if you had asked me this at the beginning of the season, I would have said, I would have said, actually, I can see that happening, because you have Blake Griffin showing leadership. You have him, doing a little bit of everything. You had him putting up historic numbers during the playoffs last year, like Oscar Robertson numbers. Like, no one sent him, and he's only a year younger. Like, I mean, there were things like that were maybe they don't need Chris Paul, but like when Blake goes down, or when Kyrie goes down, because Kyrie goes down all the time too. And granted, Chris Paul isn't the healthiest player ever. I mean, he played all 82 games last season, I think, but he hasn't been completely healthy. He hasn't been completely himself still. But now he's getting back to that, you know what I mean? So, like, you can't trade him. You can't trade him. Kyrie's not himself. It's just not. If you had asked me at the beginning of the season, I would have said sure. But now I don't think so.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, like I said, 99% chance it won't happen. I think the Clippers would benefit. I think Cleveland would benefit too. Cleveland looks like that team is trying to win now. The Clippers
could get a little bit.
It's not going to happen overnight. Kyrie Irving definitely is a better fit long term because of his youth. And he definitely could fit well with Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan. But,
who are both around the same age as him.
Right. As opposed to Chris Paul, who's like entering,
his
the
prime
tail
of the
end, the tail end of his career.
I mean, he's around LeBron's age.
Right, he's gonna start hitting the start to fade away wall pretty soon. So I mean, you might as well. The Clippers better win now if they plan on winning with Chris Paul. But Whiteside again, we talk about Whiteside a lot on the show. Sorry if you guys hate the Whiteside comments, but
Love Whiteside.
There's been. There's 5 teams right now that could make a legitimate push for Hassan. First one's Houston. We all know about that one with Dwight Howard and Hassan, swapping teams. The Heat would have to throw in, like people like Josh McRoberts and Chris Anderson and maybe Luol Deng, maybe not. But that's a possibility. The Boston Celtics have that pick from the Nets. They could trade a couple of guards, maybe some assets over there. Maybe Sullinger, maybe Zeller. Maybe David Lee. You don't know. The Pelicans have also been in the running for that. They have a legitimate chance to make that happen. And then the Hornets, they can make a chance for Al Jefferson maybe. And then the Nets with Brook Lopez. I mean, there's a lot of
Hassan Whiteside could pretty much go to any team right now.
I mean,
because of his contract. The contract is the thing that's making teams sound like they could make a push for it.
Yeah.
But also, making teams weary about taking him because he has a contract expiring, but it's so cheap right now.
Well, out of the Rockets, Celtics, Pelicans, Hornets, and Nets, who do you think is the best suitor for Hassan? Who do you think has the best chance of getting him?
Who has the best chance of getting him?
Who do you think actually has a trade to send to the Miami Heat that actually makes sense?
I'd have to say probably either.
Out of those 5 teams.
I would either have to say the Heat, not the Heat, the Houston Rockets, or possibly Boston. I'd like to see him in Boston.
Boston has that pick. That pick is what the Miami Heat would.
I'd like to see him in Boston. I don't think he'd work well with Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis can kind of stretch the floor, but he's not. Anthony Davis.
Defensively, they'd be pretty great.
They'd be pretty good. But Hassan Whiteside also makes teams worse on defense. Did you that statistic? They're better on defense without Hassan Whiteside. That might be why he doesn't get Defensive Player of the Year, even though he's averaging like 4 blocks a game. It's crazy. It's crazy. I don't understand.
I think definitely either the Celtics or maybe the Nets. If the Nets would have to give up a lot to get him. Brook Lopez obviously. I think he would fit well with Miami. If you throw in maybe like some young players, like maybe like I don't know,
maybe Jefferson, the rookie that
maybe not Hollis Jefferson. Maybe like if you threw in players, kind of like maybe if you threw in Joe Johnson, but the Nets kind of kept the salary from Joe Johnson and a trade exception.
So you're thinking like maybe a team builds around Whiteside,
right? Like
that'd be an interesting.
Like if the Nets blew it up and got a pick from Miami, maybe got Hassan Whiteside, and they gave like pretty much everyone that started with Hassan Whiteside, Hollis Jefferson, some nice players like that. Monk, out of those 5 teams, which team do you see fitting Hassan, or which team do you think will make the best push to trade for Hassan? The Lakers are also been talking about it, but the Lakers I don't think they're worth mentioning because I don't think the Heat are looking to
trade with the Lakers.
I think the Hornets honestly could make a pretty big
Really?
push.